Hello, welcome back to CSEC English B Paper 2 Solutions with Miss Athalie. Today we will continue to focus on prose fiction. This is what section C looks like. You are given 4 choices. 5 and 6 are based on the novels and 7 and 8 are based on the 10 stories from A World of Prose for CSEC. You must only answer one question. So here you have 4 choices again, but you only write one essay. This is the only section that gives you 4 choices. Section A and B, they only give you 2. So choose wisely. However, today we will be looking at this question on Breath, Eyes, Memory by Edwidge Danticat. If you have not read this book, you can still follow along because the techniques are quite useful. So this question is taken from the January 2020 paper. I have already broken the question down and highlighted the 3 main parts. Please remember that you will always be asked to discuss 3 main things, and reading the question carefully will help you to identify them. So let's read the question. It always starts with a statement to consider, which will usually be presented in inverted commas. So here, the motivation of the female characters in Breath, Eyes, Memory is abundantly clear. So we know that we are going to focus on motivation, right? And then we have the 3 main parts, which I will break down a little more in the next slide. But if you want, you can pause this video to read the question carefully. So the statement here is in orange. I don't need to read it again because I just did. We have to write an essay in which you explain the motivation of 2 female characters. So we know that this is number 1. We have to explain the motivation. Then we must discuss the effect of this motivation on one character. Then we have to examine one technique the writer uses to explore the character's motivation. Now, if you've been with me for a while, you will notice that for some of the other questions, for the short stories and the poems, sometimes they ask for 2 techniques. So maybe this is an advantage of answering the questions on the novels, that they ask for 1 technique. So let us brainstorm. Now I added this slide here to show you that your CXE script will always have space for you to write notes. Please use this space, don't ignore it. You can write anything here, you can doodle, you can draw. Well, I don't advise you to draw, you don't have time to do that, but it says here, you may make notes here. This will not be marked. Use this to plan your essay. Please do not start writing your essay if you haven't brainstormed, if you haven't written a plan. So here is an example of how I would use this space. My favorite technique is to use the cloud, but your teacher may have shown you something else, or maybe you developed a different planning technique by yourself and you prefer to use that. That's fine. Just make sure that you have a plan. In the middle of my cloud, I've written the motivation of female characters. Why? This is our central focus. So this is in the middle of the cloud here. First thing I have to do is explain the motivation of 2 characters. So I'm going to write the different parts around that cloud, right? Next, effect of this motivation on one character. Next, one technique the writer uses to explore the character's motivation. So here I've decided to go with Martine and Louise. Martine, we can see that she's very motivated. She's working hard for the betterment of the family. She moved away to work so that she could earn more money. And then we have Louise. While she is a minor character, we can see that she shows great motivation. She wants to leave Haiti. She wants to be smuggled away, in a little boat. And these journeys are usually dangerous and life-threatening, but she doesn't care. She wants to leave. She's motivated to leave. Next, effect of this motivation on one character. Now note that it never said it has to be the 2 characters that we chose in the beginning. So I've decided to go with Attie. Attie is heartbroken when she finds out that Louise left. So we're going to elaborate on that in our essay. And finally, the technique I've decided to focus on here is symbolism. We have Ursula represented here, but I will get to that in a while. So after we have written our plan, we want to just look at what our essay might look like, right? So you must always have an introduction. You can't just get into your essay, you need to have an introduction. Part one, I'm going to write about Martine and Louise. Then our next paragraph will be about the effect of this motivation on one character. Then we will write about the technique and we must have a conclusion at the end. Please close your essay. You are going to be marked for organization. So you cannot have a disorganized, scattered essay. You will definitely lose marks for that. So this is why I want to emphasize that planning is very important in the beginning. Our next step is to write. So once you have your plan in front of you, it's going to be much easier to write because you already have your ideas organized. Then, do we submit our paper and be like, yes, I did it, I'm a genius? No. You have to proofread. Go over your essay. Make sure you dot your I's, cross your T's. Do you have grammatical errors, spelling errors? You're going to be marked for all of these things. So make sure that you are satisfied with what you have written. Always proofread. And I always say this, even the best writers on the planet proofread. I proofread as well. Right, so this is what our essay looks like. Now, when it is typed, it usually looks much shorter than it is, but this essay is over 500 words, which might be a little more than you are expected to write. Although CSEC doesn't give a word limit for these essays, I would assume it's around the 450 to 500 word limit because this is the maximum you are writing for your paper 2 English A exam, right? Your short story. And since you have 3 essays to write, I do not think that CSEC is going to require you to write 1,000 words per essay. That's beyond your level right now. But if you can and you can express your views clearly, by all means do so. But you have to take into consideration that you have 3 essays to write. So we're going to go through each part step by step. And there might be other things that you think should be added, but to stick to a certain word limit, I did not write every single thing. So let us go with our introduction. Remember, we must mention every part of the question in the introduction. It is the order in which you will use to discuss your different parts. It helps you to organize your essay that way. So let's go. The novel Breath Eyes Memory by Edwidge Danticat presents female characters who are strongly motivated to achieve their goals. They are portrayed as strong women who persevere even in times of great adversity. 2 such characters are Martine and Louise, who are both motivated to strive for better conditions. So this is the first part I've mentioned. At times, their drive to advance in life saddens or frustrates those around them. I've mentioned the second part here. Danticat creatively uses symbolism to explore characters' motivations. And here I have mentioned the third part. So it is highlighted just like I did in the question itself. And this way, your reader knows exactly what you are going to discuss. They don't know all the details, but they have an idea of how your essay is going to be organized. And instantly, they realize, hey, this student knows what he or she is talking about. I want to read more. So let's move on to the first part. Martine's motivation is made clear from the beginning of the novel. She has left her daughter Sophie with her sister Attie in order to move to the United States of America. She works hard for the betterment of the family and sends for Sophie when she has finally earned enough money to do so. When Sophie arrives in Brooklyn, she discovers that her mother drives an old car and lives in a decrepit apartment building covered in graffiti. The interior is far from luxurious, and there is only 1 bedroom. These conditions do not seem to discourage Martine. She continues to work tirelessly at the nursing home until she has saved enough money to move to a more affluent neighborhood. Although Martine suffers from her own inner turmoil, she continues striving towards her goals. Another female character whose motivation is abundantly clear is Louise. She is extremely driven to leave Haiti as she believes that her life is in danger. She is convinced that her life will improve once she escapes to Miami. She plans to travel there by boat, and although this is a life threatening journey, it appears that no one can convince her to stay. She is determined to sell her pig so that she can pay the smugglers for her journey. After she sells the pig, she vanishes without a trace and does not even say goodbye to her best friend Attie. Her motivation to escape her current circumstances appears to be greater than the friendship she shared with Attie. Now here I divided this part into two paragraphs because it seemed more appropriate here. But if you write it as one paragraph, that is also fine. Moving on to part 2, the effect of this motivation on one character. After Attie realizes that Louise has left without saying goodbye, she becomes extremely depressed. It is clear that she never wanted Louise to leave, as she constantly discouraged her from this idea. For example, when Sophie offered to pay for the pig, she asked her not to and elaborated, "I do not want to push her into the ocean." After the reality of Louise's departure has kicked in, Attie mentions that she cannot attend Mass anymore, as she might choke on the communion for being so angry and sad. Now we move on to part 3 and the conclusion. So here we are looking at the technique. One symbol used by Danticat to portray female motivation is Ursuli, who is present throughout the novel. This Haitian goddess is a representation of female courage and strength. In the beginning, Sophie imagines that her mother is similar to this goddess, but after meeting her, she decides that this may not be realistic. Ursuli's powerful nature highlights the inadequacies of regular women and emphasizes that although they may work tirelessly, they are still vulnerable to the harsh realities of life. Regardless, their bravery and determination make them seem divine. Now, we cannot just stop here. We have to close our essay. We have to conclude. So here, what we do, we recap the main points, but please do not include any new information. You should not be talking about Mark or Grandma Ife. If you did not mention them throughout the essay, don't include anything new, right? Okay. So, and one trick that you can use is simply to rewrite your introduction, but paraphrase it. Use different words. So here we go. Motivated female characters play important roles throughout the novel. Martine and Louise are determined to achieve a better standard of living, despite the risks involved. Their drive to succeed impacts different characters, but this does not halt their efforts. Edwige's creative use of symbolism helps to highlight this motivation even more. Easy, right? If it's not, just keep practicing. I will always say that organization is key, so once you are able to understand how to do that, it's going to be a lot easier. In the next video, we want to continue looking at Breath Eyes Memory. So we'll be focusing on the May 2019 paper. If you would like to read it, you can pause the video. If you would like to write this essay in advance, you can submit it to me and I will try my best to correct it for you. This is one of the ways that you are sure to improve by completing the past paper questions, writing as much as you can instead of just relying on luck and chance on the day. That usually doesn't work. Okay, so thank you for joining us and I will see you next time. I hope that you learned something. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to leave them below and I'll do my best to reply.